Hi there! You just walked through the purpose and benefits for teachers and students and defined types of objectives. Keeping this in mind, I'm here to help you dig further into setting effective objectives. Setting effective objectives requires balance. Objectives can fall into two categories, effective and ineffective. Let's review the criteria. An effective objective is perfectly balanced with three subset criteria. For an objective to be effective, it must be appropriately specific, meaning it's not too broad, too narrow, or confining. It must be student-friendly and stated clearly in a way that's easily understood. And lastly, it must be tied to knowledge and skills rather than activities. Ineffective objectives are imbalanced because they lack one of the three subset criteria. The objective might be too broad, narrow, or confining. It's not student-friendly, and it's tied to activities rather than knowledge and skills. When an ineffective objective is set, it offsets the students achieving their learning goals. Let's jump into the classroom to examine each criteria and determine whether each objective is effective or ineffective and why. Remember, criteria 1 is appropriately specific, meaning it's specific but not restrictive. Here's an example objective. Students will learn the process of scientific inquiry. Let's think, what process are students using to learn? Because I don't know what students will use the process to do, this is too broad. It's not very meaningful. It requires revision to gain balance. Consider this potential objective. Students will write 3 observations about how fruit flies multiply using 2 pictures and 1 sentence. It goes beyond what students will learn into how, very specifically, they will show they learned it. This objective is too narrow. Due to it being so narrow, it lessens the ability to differentiate instruction for a diverse population of students. This means it's ineffective and requires revision. Students will describe multiplication of fruit flies based on observation. It's specific enough to know what will be learned, but not restrictive. Students will know what needs to be learned in order to achieve the goal, but it doesn't limit the journey to accomplish the learning goal. This objective is now an effective objective. On to criteria 2. Criteria 2 is student-friendly, meaning it's stated in a way that clearly and easily communicates with students. Here's an example objective. Students will evaluate the impact of changing distribution patterns in populations, resources, and climate on the environment of South America and Europe. This objective appears to be a student expectation copied straight from a state standard. The language of this objective is not student-friendly, throwing learning off balance. Due to the complicated wordiness, this objective requires revision. Here's another potential objective. Students will judge how changes in population, resources, and climate affect the environment in South America and Europe. This objective contains the key ideas and terms in a student-friendly language and is more accessible to students. This objective meets our student-friendly criteria and is now an effective objective. Criteria 3 states that the objective is tied to knowledge and skills rather than an activity, meaning it's linked to student learning and performance. Here's a potential objective I will dissect based on criteria 3. Students will complete a diagram of the digestive system. This objective states what students will do, complete a diagram. Because it's tied to an activity for students to demonstrate their learning, this is a non-example and labeled as ineffective. Revision is required. Here's another potential objective. Students will identify the parts of the digestive system and their role in the digestive process. This objective is focused on the knowledge students will learn. This objective is used to show their learning. This objective is now an effective objective. Are you feeling confident based on identifying objectives as effective or ineffective yet, based on the criteria we've discussed? To check your understanding, you'll be given several teacher-created objectives. Your task will be to determine if it's effective or ineffective based on the subset criteria. If it's not there yet, you'll move the objective into the designated pile that contains the reason it's an ineffective objective. I'll model the first one for you using what we've learned regarding effective objectives. Here's the first potential objective. The student will apply mathematics to problems arising in everyday life, society, and the workplace. Apply mathematics to solve problems all over, in life, society, and the workplace. That's a lot to cover and becomes confusing. This objective is ineffective because it covers so much. It's very broad. I'd move it to the ineffective category under the subset Too Broad, knowing it requires revision. Now it's your turn.